Hi, this is Christine, your relationship and mindset master doctor, and your leverage for change. So today I want to speak about 7 reasons the dismissive avoidant individual fears intimacy. If you have been following my videos, you will recognize that intimacy, the fear of intimacy, is one of the biggest challenges for someone with the dismissive avoidant attachment style. So I just want to kind of give you 7 reasons why they fear intimacy. One of the first reasons is they don't trust relationships, so there is this fear of abandonment, just as it is with the anxious preoccupied. However, it's a different kind of fear of abandonment. It's more in terms of they fear rejection, and so that rejection kind of allowed them to, or kind of caused them to develop a defense mechanism to avoid getting too close to others, right? They may believe that if they allow themselves to become too attached to somebody, they will eventually be abandoned or rejected. So that's the difference between the individual with the anxious preoccupied. Both fear abandonment, but for different reasons. And I'll do another video with the anxious preoccupied so you can see the difference, right? So the fear of abandonment, it is going to be, the base is going to be more fear of rejection, fear of becoming so attached to the person that they fear that if the person abandons them, they're not going to be able to handle it very well, because they don't, and fear of rejection. So they try to keep themselves distance, so they don't have that the possibility. They actually feel that if they have this keep this distance, that they can manage that fear of abandonment. So that is one of the reasons why the dismissive avoidant will avoid intimacy. They fear intimacy, so they are not going to be very open to intimacy, except for when they're actually in a sexual kind of dynamic, like having sexual relationships with the person, right? But otherwise, they will not. They will kind of keep a distance, as most individuals know by now. For the dismissive avoidant individual, they fear intimacy. They usually have like a little wall, a kind of an invisible wall, to protect themselves from getting too close to you. The next thing is that they fear intimacy because self-reliance. They have this, as you might have heard in other videos, they are very self-reliant. And the reason why they have become this way, which is a good thing, right? But they are self-reliant, that it can go to the past the point of being just a positive thing into a negative thing, in terms of they will not ask for help if they need it, because they don't believe that they should have to ask for help. They believe that they have to do things for themselves, because that's how they were attached as children. Nobody helped them to do anything, so they found ways of helping themselves and solving their own problems. So that self-reliance is something that they kind of developed as a way of making sure that they never feel they dependent on being that intimacy, or forming that intimacy with you. Because when you are relying on someone in a relationship, you have a tendency to kind of grow closer and more you develop more intimacy with that person when you're reliant on them. But for the dismissive avoidant attachment style individual, they will actually try to prevent that connection through intimacy, because they fear it, by being very self-reliant, right? So they actually feel they don't need anyone else in their lives, and they really prefer to rely on themselves because of that, because they just don't trust that. They believe that if they become too reliant on someone, then and that person disappoints them, because at their core they don't trust relationships, right? And that person disappoints them. The same reason for the other thing of being rejected. they might not be able to handle that, all right? So they prefer to really handle whatever problems they have on their own instead of asking for help. The next thing is they fear intimacy because they have this innate fear of vulnerability. This is something that they developed as a result of how they attach to their caregivers, right? So they're afraid to express their true feelings to anyone else because they believe that somehow they can't trust anyone with how they really feel, otherwise they may use it against them. So it's a kind of a sad way to live, because you fear trusting people because of you fear getting close to people, so you're not going to be vulnerable with them, which is good. There are different aspects to these things. You should not tell everybody your business or how you're feeling, of course, right? But this individual will just not tell anyone. They will not open up to be vulnerable, even when they needed it, and even when the person, when there are others that they know, that because of maybe past interactions, that they could actually trust with this information to help them along the way, but they won't do that because they fear being vulnerable, right? Because they believe that being vulnerable means that they are weak and that others will take advantage of them if they show their emotions. That's basically the fear that they have, right? The next fear is that they have this fear of losing control. They feel uncomfortable when they're not in control. They feel uncomfortable when they're not in control. And when you're going to have this intimate relationship with someone, you have to you have to give away some of your control, right? Because you're really being vulnerable, right? And you're giving your all, and you're giving a lot of your inner emotions and all of that to someone else, right? So you are kind of like, you don't really have, you feel like you have to lose control. You have to give up some of your control. You can't just hold on to everything and believe that you can create that kind of an intimacy, because you're not going to be, when you hold on to all of those things, you can't really freely become emotionally vulnerable with someone else. So this fear of losing control is one of the issues why the dismissive avoidant fears intimacy, because they feel that if they lose control, right, of the relationship, they feel they always have to be in control of the relationship. And if they open up themselves to that person, that they may worry that by opening up to somebody else, they will lose control over their own lives. The next thing is that, from past trauma from their interaction with their caregivers when they were children, the dismissive avoidant may have experienced traumatic events in the past that have left them with a fear of intimacy. Those events could include abuse. It could be abuse. It could be physical. It could be emotional abuse. It could be neglect or other forms of trauma. So they are very, they're very tentative in forming relationships. As a matter of fact, they might allow themselves, is what I want to say, to get very close to someone, but when they feel, I remember I was dating someone who was a dismissive avoidant, and probably still is, and I remember the person saying, I hope that the gist of the thing was, know that he is so close to me, I won't hurt him. So you see, that kind of thing is a mindset of that person. They fear intimacy because they believe that somebody could hurt them, right? Dismissive avoidant individuals may have the attachment style that makes it difficult for them to form close relationship with others because of all these things I just mentioned before. They may have learned early in life that to show emotions mean that it will be rejected or ridiculed or criticized, so they learned to suppress their emotions and to avoid getting too close to anybody else, right? Another reason why they fear intimacy is because of negative beliefs, and formed from these earlier interactions with their caregivers or others and subsequent relationships. Because the thing is that sometimes these, even though they were formed from they were children, because of the trauma, they are now attracted to other people who will treat them the same way that their caregivers did, right? They especially when they haven't healed from the trauma or haven't gone to therapy and learned how to manage the trauma and what's wrong and what they need to work on, then they will now develop these negative beliefs, right? They may believe that relationships on a whole are negative, are actually going to, it never lasts. So it's almost like they have like a deadline, a kind of timeline that, this is probably going to be good for like maybe 1 year or 2 years or so. So they always have looking forward almost like to the end of that relationship. So you see how negative that can be, because if you go into a relationship looking for it to end because you don't believe that relationships are good or healthy, then, of course, it's going to be very difficult to sustain healthy relationships because you already went in there with this negative mindset of what to expect from relationships. So these are some ways, guys, that the dismissive avoidant will, some reasons why they fear intimacy, right? And I'm going to give you a couple things, some ways that you can, that this attachment style can manage those fears of intimacy, right? The first way to change anything, or for any change, or to manage anything, is really to recognize what the problem is, right? What is the problem? Recognize and acknowledge. So you have to not only recognize it, but acknowledge that there is a problem in this area, right? And once you acknowledge that there is a fear of intimacy, you can then begin to understand and begin to see how you can now move forward working on this, right? Of course, it's really important that you find someone that is going to help you with this. If you are in a relationship, it's really important also to partner with the person that you are in relationship with to help you along this path of change, right? So, as I said, the first step is recognition of and becoming aware that there's a problem and what that problem is. It's also important to really, I always have my clients write a list of what are the issues that they always find popping up in relationships as causing problems. That way it's top of mind. It's top of mind. When you have something just rolling around in your head, sometimes when the thing is right in front of you, you don't recognize it. But once you write it down, it becomes more tangible and it sticks more into your mind, so that when that thing comes up again, you are able to recognize it more easily and to easily access it. Because when you have it there in your, it's not written down, you haven't really paid attention to it. Paying attention to it, writing it down means that you're paying attention to it and making it more, it's like it's an extra step that you do, so it makes it more possible that you remember it and recognize it when it happens again. The next thing is, of course, one of the problems is vulnerability. So to practice vulnerability with trusted individuals, and that's why I say to you that it's important that you speak to your partner. If you obviously, hopefully you trust your partner, right? So you have to practice vulnerability with people who are, that you can trust. This can begin by just always baby steps, guys, because this is difficult for someone with this attachment style. With any change, remember, it is always going to be difficult to create any type of change. So always take baby steps. Right? You cannot change overnight. These things have been working in the background of your lives and running your life, and these are the lens that you've seen your lives through and manage your behaviors through from your children. So it's going to take time, right? So baby steps, and so do share small details. You can begin by sharing small details about your life with others, right? And gradually build up to more personal and more emotional conversations. So it's a gradual thing, right? You go at your pace and you have others. Make sure that the people that you're going to be doing this with are people that you trust. People that you trust. The next thing is to work on developing emotional awareness, right? A lot of individuals with this attachment style are not very emotionally intelligent. They really can't, like when the two attachment styles that are very emotionally intelligent is they're the fearful and the anxious, right? Because they were very careful to watch their caregivers and to know and to actually read, especially the fearful, micro expressions because usually the fearful may have been abused in some way, or whether it be emotional or physical or in other ways. And so this will allow them to, it's really a survival thing, right? So they can tell when, if they see the person who usually abused them, their micro expressions change to anger or irritation or whatever, then they know how to get out of the way to survive, right? So they don't get hurt. So the dismissive avoidant will have to learn now, because they have always kind of like almost lived a solitary life, even though they had caregivers. They kind of took care of themselves, did their own thing. So they didn't have that emotional expression back and forth with people. And, you know, it was not welcomed by their caregivers or people who cared for them. So they did not have that emotional intelligence to kind of speak about things that hurt and know that, and really kind of just express that emotion to others, right? So now they have to now develop emotional awareness through practices such of, it can be mindfulness, right? But, you know, I find that this is one of the most difficult things, I believe, because in our society, our world is so busy. It's just busy, 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 busy. And there are so many distractions. If it's not your phone, there's something around there, and you have things that you need to do. And so this is going to take a lot of work, mindfulness, because mindfulness really is the ability to remain focused on something for an extended period of time, right? And kind of slow down. You're slowing down things to be able to focus on things. Now, some people have mastered it, but it takes time. It takes time. I've tried it, and I'm not really good at staying quiet too long. So I've always tried other things, right? Like I have actually found that for me, questioning to slow down something. If there is something that is bothering me, then I will slow it down by actually physically, verbally questioning it. And it slows it down, because I have to now answer that question, right? I'm forming the questions of, is this true? Is this that? Is whatever it is. And then I have to answer in response to that question that I ask myself. And that helps me to kind of slow the process of just my whole thoughts and stuff down, right? And be able to develop, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? Is this the right response? If I feel like I'm going to be responding a certain way, is this the best way of responding? If I respond this way, what are the consequences of responding in this way? So I find that the questioning for me works better. If you can try the mindfulness, it is really good. There are lots of videos on mindfulness. You can try and do that. There are also videos on meditation, meaning slowing down and just focused on certain things, meaning that you are able to focus on a specific, maybe a sound of a clock ticking, something to keep your mind focused on. So it's really focus. So if you can develop any way of focusing on the present and staying in the present versus having all of these thoughts just ruminating from the past, and you're thinking more about the past and the future instead of versus what is happening in the moment. And we all know that the only time that we can change anything is from the present. So mindfulness really allows you to be able to stay in the present so that you can make the changes now that will affect your future. Remember that you cannot do anything to change your past. You can only learn from the lessons that you learned from those past experiences, right? The next thing is to challenge your negative beliefs. And of course, this is how it is to challenging it for me is questioning your negative beliefs, right? Because you may have negative beliefs about relationships or intimacy that is contributing to that fear, right? That fear of intimacy. So challenge those. Ask the questions. You have to go down the line. I have a video on how to ask those questions on my site. Working to identify and challenge these beliefs can help you develop a more positive outlook on intimacy. Also, as I mentioned earlier, seek professional help. I help individuals in these cases, right? Seek professional help, because The good thing about a professional help is that they're going to be seeing things that you have become accustomed to and may not be noticing. Whereas someone from the outside, like myself, when you start saying things and you start doing things, and the reason you do these things and you're bringing up we are having a conversation, I can point out things that may be contributing to that fear by the way you speak about those things. All right, so of course there is a in my description there, there's a way to contact me so that we can work and to see how we can work together. And before I forget, we do have I do have a free 30-minute consult which will help to, that allows you to ask me any kind of questions about coaching, and also answer. I will tell you also how it works, how I work with you, so that we can come together and see how we will work together to really solve these issues and work on yourself. The next thing is to practice self-care. And this is always, you hear about self-care in everything, but really one of the biggest things for self-care, for me, a lot of people will speak of self-care in terms of going to the spa, exercising, working out, which those are good things. Those are great beginning ways of beginning your self-care process, right? Ways to reduce stress, and increase, which will the exercise is going to reduce stress as well as improve your well-being, right? And it will also help you to, feel better about how you look overall, because, sometimes when you don't feel like how you look, then it's going to cause some of the stress and also damage your self-esteem, your self-image, stuff like that. But for me, spending time in nature is beautiful, because nature tends to rejuvenate you by the beach, where a lot of trees are, in the park, and just sometimes just going out and just being outdoors is really good, right? And but my big thing when it comes to self-care is really taking care of your mental and emotional state by setting boundaries and creating boundaries. Now, this particular attachment style, the dismissive avoidant, really does not have a problem with this, with boundaries. As a matter of fact, they have built-in boundaries from they were children. They don't allow people, they like their time, they like to, be alone, they like their alone time, and they create, and that there's a boundary you don't pass, right? Because that's just part of their attachment style. So guys, remember to be patient when you're working on yourself in any capacity. Any change is going to require commitment, persistency, and so you need to be patient with yourself, right? Just the way you might be patient with someone else, do that to yourself as well, because a lot of people, they believe that change is going to come like this. But remember, you've been working and operating from this attachment style for years and years and years, depending on how old you are. So therefore, if you expect that it's going to change in 1 minute, and not only that, the other thing about it is that I've worked with individuals who, they believe that just by coming to coaching and just listening to me telling them what to do, but they don't do the work. So you have to be committed to doing the work, right? You must be committed to doing the work, to really put that thing in working, work it, because guys, nothing is going to change unless you do the work. Just hearing it is not going to change anything. It's a practice on behavioral practice that's going to change, because it is going to change your mindset and everything else, right? So I hope that you learned something from this video, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to like at least, and make a comment if you find that there are other ways that you may have been able to manage your attachment style. If you are someone with this dismissive attachment style, then please put it down in the comment section. I'll try my best to get to as many as possible. And also, if you have other questions about this, I'll be, I'll try to answer them as well. in future videos. So again, guys, take care of yourself. This is Dr. Christine, your relationship and mindset master doctor, and your leverage for change. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.